I am not a fan of weight and balance because I'm really bad at it. In fact, I've been so bad that regardless of how many tutorials and how many times I've researched it and how many times I've studied it, I still don't get it. So I decided to make this semi-impromptu video in order to help me out, and by so doing, hopefully help you if you're also having trouble figuring this out. The bottom line when it comes to figuring out your weight and balance, I find finding your weight is easy. Now, figuring out your moments, right? Your moments and the center of gravity, the CG, that's the hard part. Hard. It's so hard that I wrote it over the airplane. That's where all the math comes in. So here we have a plane. On a plane, there's going to be inside the manual an example of how the plane's balance is measured. Because when you start rocking the plane back and forth, it has a center of gravity. And more often than not, that is over the wings, because that's where the plane is being lifted, by the wings. And it rocks back and forth like a little seesaw, right? And you want that to be balanced. Not only do you want it to be light enough to fly, but you also want it to be balanced so that you're not nose heavy and you're not tail heavy. Nose heavy is bad because you can't really pull up well. Tail heavy is considered worse because you can't recover from a stall. And that's really bad. So you want this thing to be balanced. They measure balance by something called the datum, which is an arbitrary point on the plane that the manufacturers choose to measure some kind of arm, right? Some kind of measure thing, so that from this, this is a point, this is a point, and this is a point. And they will, on a Piper Cherokee, for example, it's at the nose cone. They can measure these points on the plane and give a number of how far back it is from the datum. And they'll write this in the manual so that you don't have to run out with a measuring tape every single time you load the plane. It's quite nice. So in this example, we're going to use you, the pilot, weighing 180 pounds. And according to the little arm, this point is 20 inches out from the datum. You also do this with the fact that, you got 30 gallons of fuel. 30 by 6 is 180, and that is at the 40 point from the arm. And at the 60 point from the arm here, you have your backpack, which is only 20 pounds. And of course, we got the naked empty plane, which is 15 Hunsky. And they have decided that its center of gravity is at the 50 points, somewhere here. Lovely. Now we got to do the math. Again, how do you figure out if the plane is too heavy? You do the easy part. Weight is easy. You add the empty weight, the pilot, the fuel, the baggage. Obviously, there's going to be more stuff on the plane, depending. But you add up all the factors and you are now 1,880 pounds. Now, another thing that your manual will have is this nice little graph here. It'll look something like this. See, you have the weight on the y-axis that tells you how heavy the plane can be loaded. And on the x-axis, you have the point of the center of gravity and how far forward or how far back it can be. And then you have this slanted-looking square doodly-bop that kind of measures the envelope of your balance, how heavy the plane can be and how back and forth your center of gravity can be. Interestingly enough, if you look at the shape, it's almost like the shape of a wing. Oh, and the wing is the point where the plane generates lift, and thus that is kind of where you want the plane to balance. Yes, quite. You'll also notice that in your manuals, there's going to be a utility category and a normal category. So normal category is if you're doing a nice leisurely flight in good weather. Utility category is much more strict. They want your center of gravity to be much more within this envelope and to be much lighter because, you're probably going to be doing more maneuvers. For example, if you're trying to do stalls or spins or anything crazy like that, then they don't want you getting too nutty with the cheese whiz. Using this fake graph, we discovered that 2,000 pounds is right here and it's well within the envelope. And since we're only 1,880, we're also right within the envelope. So we're good for weight, but that was the easy part. Now we got to figure out the hard part. Now you notice that these arms are in a little column by themselves because you have to multiply your weight by your arm to get your moment. And this is a very important number because this tells you how much seesaw pushage that your weight has on the plane. We do our calculations here. We do the weight of the empty plane by its center of gravity to get 7,500. We do it for the pilot in the 20 category as predetermined by the manual. We do the fuel as predetermined by the manual at the 40, 7,200. The baggage only 20 pounds at the 60 point, predetermined, 1,200. We add all this up and we get this moment of 19,500 like inch per pounds, pushage, right? Pushery. That's our pushery. Now, how do we figure out the balance? Well, we solve for this thing. And we get a number of, interesting enough, 10.37. Which is funny because that would mean that it is all the way over here. Looking at that number, that only being a 10, very nose heavy. There's a lot that needs to be put in the back in order to balance things out. But of course, we have a problem because I made these numbers up off the top of my head. So let's play a little pretendo game and say that for some bizarre miracle, 10.3 was like right here or something. So we would do our little measure of like 18. Oh, that's good. So, you know, we're well within the thing. Let's do the thing. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Actually, it wouldn't. Because okay, let's put 10.3 over here. Point is, if we do 10.3, the real 10.3, not the fake 10.3. That's a liar. It's fake news. We would see, oh, joy, we're within normal category. That's great. Now, honestly, maybe if we put more weight in the back here. So this is an interesting thing because sometimes you get the other kind of question. So it's probably a good thing that I messed this thing up because the other kind of question they usually ask that I really get tripped up on is, oh, let's say, you know, this is your first calculation. Yes, but then a passenger leaves the plane, and then the passenger in the rear seat, ooh, goes up. Ooh, look at me, I'm a passenger. Oh, I'm walking, and now I'm going to be sitting in the front seat. Ooh, I just messed up the calculations, and then it's up to you to recalculate everything. Let's say that we have this little 10 problem, and it's like, well, golly bum. What can we do to balance this plane out? Because that's another question is like, is your plane within balance and within weight? If not, then how can you change it? Ooh. So we can say, well. You could lose some weight, or we can put some weight in the back here. So just out of curiosity, let's recalculate everything. If we had 60 pounds instead of 20 pounds. So what would you do? Well, you would add an additional 40 pounds to this equation here. So 1880 would become 2040, and this number would change because the baggage is now 60 by 60. So instead of 1,200, it is 3,600. We just add the difference to that, and that new number is 21900. Oh, so what if we take this number and divide it by 2040? What does that give us? I'm curious. Let's find out. That only gives us 10.73. That's still that's still not enough. Oh, this plane is poorly designed. Oh, I'm a terrible engineer. Oh, the horror. Oh, the horror. So clearly we see that these arbitrary numbers aren't really working out here, but you get the gist of what you're trying to do here, of trying to figure this out. At some point, you'd probably go back to the manufacturer and go like, hey, buddy, you sold me a lemon. This thing is way, way, way nose heavy. Or the measurements are off or something, and the guy would probably give excuses. But let's pretend, again, let's go to La La Land and say that 10.7 is over here. And it just so happens to match up here because you're at a heavier load. So you're at 2040, so you're here. So you boop, 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 boop. Oh, you're still within normal category. That checks out. The point I'm trying to make in all of this is that I had a huge hard time just struggling with all of these calculations because the way it was being explained wasn't really visualized very well. So I had to kind of recontextualize it with my own artwork just to get an idea. Weight is easy, moment is hard. Adding up the weight is going to be easy to find out because you'll find out if that plane can even fly to begin with. But then you got to find out if it can fly within balance, and that's when you got to do all the math to make sure that it's within the red wing. You want to be within the wing, okay? Because the wing is what helps you fly.